from thathashtagshow.com, and we're here with Sacha from Anvil, the Story of Anvil, again. And we're here with the re-release of Anvil. And so just to start off, I know you're going to get this one a lot, but just for everybody that's watching at home, what brought up the re-release of the documentary? Because it came out obviously in 2008, and now we're here in 2022 having it come out again.
Well, it was at Sundance in 2008, and it took us actually a year, more than a year, till it was released. It was released in April 2009, so it's been 13 years since then. Very simple story. My godson, Rio Hansen, who was 3 at the time that me and his mother, Rebecca Yeldon, produced the film, he said, "I'd love to see the movie that you and Mom made when I was really young." This was last summer. He was 17. And so I said, "Sure, come up and watch it. I'll screen it for you at the house or whatever. Come up." He said, "Can I bring some friends?" So I said, "Sure." So he brought all his high school buddies, and they went completely insane for the movie. So they told their friends, and we started off with 1 screening, then 2, 6, 8. We ended up doing 10 word of mouth screenings with friends just wanting to see the movie because it wasn't available, right? So along these screenings, all these incredible people came, like Jim James of My Morning Jacket and the singer Youngblood, and all these artists from music from across very different genres as well as metal. And this guy came called Robert Schwartzman, who was the lead singer of the band called Rooney, which was a great indie band. It's still around, just opened for the Zombies at the Whiskey recently. And at the end of the screening, Robert was watching all these kids freaking out, and he said, "You know, by the way, I have a film distribution company called Utopia, and I'm seeing how these kids are reacting. Maybe we should bring this movie out again." And he was talking to the kids, and they were saying, "Look, we've been locked down for COVID, and it's been a horrible time for us, and we want hopeful, inspiring stories, and this is that." So Robert's like, "Okay, we're going to re-release this movie, but we're going to act like it's never been released before." Because to these kids, they've never heard of the band or the movie. So let's be fresh about it and not treat it so much as a re-release as a release. And so he gave us, I don't know if you've noticed on Sunset, these giant billboards, above Gil Turner's on Sunset and Doheny, and then we have a 70-foot high one, right by Girls, Girls, Girls on the other end of Sunset. And so he's just like a madman. He was as crazy as I was, and he was like, "I think we should bring it to these kids." And then last night, you were obviously at the event, I asked how many people had not seen the movie, and it was more than half of the room put their hands up. And this new audience who maybe heard about it from their older brother or even their dad or someone. And so they're intrigued and they're discovering it for themselves. And I think after everything that everyone's been through the past few years, stories of like persevering through incredibly testing times, and yet maybe there's hope at the end of it if you don't give up. I think kids really want that kind of a story, and that's what seems to be happening. Like, I don't know if you saw last night, but the teenagers, the 17, 18, 19, they were literally freaking out when the band came out and played afterwards. So that's the exciting and frankly, the completely unexpected thing that has happened, is how deeply this film is resonating with kids, frankly, who most of whom probably weren't born when it came out, or who were toddlers.
Yeah.
So it's the toddler Anvil fans are giving it life.
Yeah, get the baby onesies with Anvil on it. But
good marketing idea, Hunter. Good marketing.
Yeah. So like we're in this sort of I would say that this documentary really kicked off the more hopeful style of the metal documentary. After this one, we had, Iron Maiden's Flight 666. We had the Lemmy documentary. We have a new documentary about Dio coming out. And before this, we had some sort of different, sort of less hopeful, more sort of depressing documentaries, sort of like some kind of monster by Metallica or whatever, that were focusing on the
great film though.
It is a great film. Some Kind of Monster is great, but like how do you think you guys changed the landscape of documentaries for about metal? Because somebody else could have very easily made this documentary and made it into something more that was making fun of them, and you made it more like kind of like the humor of Spinal Tap, but with that extremely hopeful message.
I mean, obviously, Spinal Tap, when I first saw it, I was like one of 2 people in the cinema in London at the Swiss Cottage Odeon. There was 2 of us in like a 600-seat auditorium watching it. It was not a successful movie, but over time it sort of grew, and I think it got into my DNA. And a couple of years after that, I saw this movie Withnail and I, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And sort of, I think Anvil is a fusion of those 2 films in a way, almost subconsciously. And I was just making hopefully a funny, hopefully an emotional film about two best friends who made a pact to rock together forever when they were at high school. And here we are 50 years later, and they're actually doing that, which is both hilarious and insane at the same time. And for me, I had no idea what was going to come after, but I do think, looking back on it, Anvil had some sort of energetic kind of influence on the crop of music docs afterwards, and certainly the ones that got mainstream recognition. And Searching for Sugar Man, obviously, and Amy and 20 Feet from Stardom, all those films won the Academy Award for Best Documentary because of a rule change at the Academy around music docs that Anvil precipitated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's definitely, I think Anvil kicked open the door for some of those films, certainly in terms of that kind of recognition. And yeah, I felt before the model was very much behind the music, or there's a documentary as you say, which is sort of quite negative, dark or something, or there's this behind the music thing, which is the same story every time. Kids meet at school, they come up with a hit album, they're big stars, they fall out, go to rehab, re-emerge with a concept folk album, and blah blah blah. It ends with them on stage in Manila, playing to their devout Christian fans or whatever crazy model was before. But for me, I was just making a personal movie about two guys I loved, and I was financing it myself. I had no idea what was going to happen. I think you do the most interesting things in your creative life when you really have no idea what you're doing. And I think that, I hope, is the message for any young filmmakers or artists out there. Like just don't know what you're doing and do it anyway. Just follow that kind of instinct you have, and don't let people talk you out of it, because so many people tried to talk me out of. I remember my agent at the time said, you're going to finance a documentary about two unknown heavy metal musicians, and you're going to stop earning money as a writer, and you're not going to do the new Adam Sandler movie. You're going to go off and do that. You're completely out of your mind. It'll never work. It's a waste of time. Had I listened to that, Anvil would never have been made. And I think that was the lesson. I was like, you just got to do, if you're metal, man, be metal. Don't give a shit that the other kids think you're a freak, or just do what you feel,
Exactly.
Thing. And I think, as metalheads, and I can tell you are too, Hunter, it's like you're on the outside, man. People look down, people judge, but if you love it and you connect with it, honestly, who gives a fuck what other people think? And that was my attitude about the film. And there was a lot of, people trying to talk me out of it and telling me to get deals and do a DVD deal. And I was just like, no, I've seen how this movie plays. And I kind of doubled down and got a second mortgage on my house, and I took it out. And here we are 13 years later, the re-release of this film to 5 times as many theaters as it came out the first time. So it's like, I mean, no one could have predicted any of it, much less the influence that some people feel the film has. I mean, that's up to other people to make that. I can't tell you that it's an influential film. I can tell you it's a personal film. And maybe that's what people are responding to, is that it's an intimate portrait of some really insane and brilliant and wonderful characters who I just happen to know and be able to go on with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't actually know the story of it beforehand, but it's an insane story, that like the one that you told sort of in the preamble beforehand, when I guess there was the technical mess up or whatever.
People thought that was a stunt because it was Steve-O.
It,
People thought the whole thing was deliberate, but it
it,
wasn't. It was actually the owner of the theater was like, play the movie, it's taking too long. And I was like, no, stop the movie. And apparently it freeze framed on
it
Lips' face.
it paused at the exact perfect moment of Lips with a microphone sort of making a really scary, like weird looking face, and so I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is what we're going with. It works.
How was that? Did you think it was a stunt?
No, I thought when it paused that there might have been like some sort of technical issue, or that the band, because we knew that the band was going to play, and so
Yeah,
I thought, oh, then maybe they're going to play beforehand, because you could see the drum riser through the screen.
right.
So I was like, okay, maybe they're just going to play and they hit play on accident or something like that. But it worked for the screening. It was very Anvil. So
That was the whole point. Everyone was like, so anyway, yeah. So it was, but I think it was important that I introduced the film, so because a lot of people don't know the backstory, and I
mhm.
thought it was important for that.
Yeah, so it's that backstory obviously is going to be in, I think it's a new interview that's about like 15, 18
Yeah,
minutes or whatever, that's going to be, is that going to be played before or after the
that's going to
movie?
go at the end of the movie. So that in theaters, we've created this special interview with me, Lips, and Rob. So wherever you go to it in a theater in the States and Canada, you can go to anvilthefilm.com to see where it's playing. I think it's in, I don't know how many cities, but it's on 220 screens right now, which is crazy. So
Yeah.
you should be able to find it somewhere. And when you go to the theater, you'll see the remastered movie, picture and sound, but you'll also get this interview with me and the band about what happened in the intervening years. That's only available in theaters. It's not available anywhere else. So we're hoping that people want to see that and also want to enjoy the movie again,
Yeah.
or see it for the first time, more importantly.
Exactly. Speaking of that, so has there been like any thought for like an Anvil 2 or like
Yes. Yeah,
adding on to something? Because I know.
you know, after the first movie about 2014, Lips had this crazy idea, and I thought, okay, I'll just begin shooting and see what happens. So we came up with the sequel, Anvil 2, Quest for World Peace. And we sort of abandoned it because I got involved in making other films. But we thought, who knows, maybe we'll use that documentary, that footage one day to make a follow-up documentary. So we'll see. It's still there. It may still happen. Let's see how it evolves.
And so just finally wrapping up, like what would you feel about like an Anvil biopic or something like that? Something like, would that be
Well,
something that's possible?
well, Dustin Hoffman was there last night.
Oh wow, okay.
And so I think him as Lips and Warren Beatty as Rob, it could be an Ishtar 2 in a way, but I think that this is the suggestion of Dustin Hoffman's son Jake. He said
Mhm.
that's what we should be doing next. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that's what will happen.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you, Sasha, for your time, and make sure everybody to go out and see Anvil, the story of Anvil, again in theaters. It starts September 27th, and then you can catch it in wherever you can at AMC, Regal, or wherever. So go and check it out. It's a wonderful documentary. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hunter. All you have to do is go to anvilthefilm.com and it'll take you directly to tickets near or in your town.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Take it easy.